There's a reason why some men linger in a woman's mind long after the conversation ends. It's not because they gave the best compliments or tried to impress her with their job title or car. It's because they understood something far more powerful: the art of teasing with control. Not childish jokes or over-the-top flirting, but a masterful dance between interest and challenge. When done right, teasing isn't just funny, it's irresistibly magnetic. Most men fall into two extremes. They either try too hard, smothering her with compliments and attention, or they play it too safe, afraid to say anything bold in case they mess up. But the man who stands out, he creates tension. He knows that attraction lives in the space between certainty and doubt. He gives just enough to spark her curiosity, then pulls back to let her wonder. That's what makes her obsessed. A subtle tease can spark something deep, a chemical reaction in her brain. Dopamine, the same chemical responsible for addiction, gets released when we anticipate something exciting. So when a man builds anticipation, when he adds layers of unpredictability, her body reacts before her mind catches up. That's why the best teasers don't just make her laugh. They make her feel something she can't explain. The magic isn't just in what you say, but how and when you say it. A smirk before a compliment, a playful jab after she flirts, saying, "Oh, I was just starting to take you seriously until you did that with your hair," adds a twist that makes her laugh and think. It's emotional ping pong. She never quite knows where you stand, and that's what keeps her coming back. It's not just verbal either. Touch and timing matter. When she reaches for your hand, you pull away slightly, raise an eyebrow, then give in. It sends a spark. When you lean in like you're about to kiss her, then pause and whisper, "Not yet," she doesn't just hear the words. She feels the electricity. That's the difference between the men she forgets and the ones she fantasizes about. The truth is, most women are bored by predictability. What excites them is a man who can create an experience. A moment that plays with their emotions, just enough to be thrilling, never disrespectful. When you tease her with restraint, when you flirt with timing, and when you challenge her with warmth, you become more than just another guy trying to impress her. You become the one she can't stop thinking about. This isn't about being manipulative. It's about being playful, present, and in control. It's about creating tension that pulls her in naturally. Not through status, not through effort, but through emotional mastery. And once you learn how to harness this, you'll realize that teasing, when done right, isn't just fun. It's a superpower, because teasing creates tension. And tension, that's what attraction is made of. There's a quiet power in a man who isn't afraid to walk away. He doesn't beg. He doesn't chase. He doesn't compromise his values for fleeting validation. This kind of man lives by a principle rooted in Stoicism, that true control begins within. He knows that the only approval he truly needs is his own. And because of that, he becomes the most magnetic force in the room. In the game of attraction, scarcity breeds value. Just like gold is rare and therefore desired, a man who doesn't make himself readily available becomes a psychological trigger for desire. Women don't crave what they already have. They crave what they're not sure they can have. And when a man shows through his actions that he's willing to walk away, not out of arrogance but out of self-respect, he becomes unforgettable. Most men operate from fear. Fear of losing her, fear of being alone, fear of not being enough. And so they become overly available. They reply instantly, cancel their own plans, and orbit her world hoping to be chosen. But in doing so, they lose the very thing that makes them attractive: their center. The Stoic man doesn't move from fear. He moves from principle. He is grounded in his mission, in his values, and in his direction. A woman may enhance his life, but she never defines it. He doesn't perform for her attention. He simply is. And that stillness, that unshakable calm, creates a storm of curiosity in her mind. Why isn't he chasing me? Why does he seem so composed? What does he know that I don't? These questions don't push her away. They pull her in. Because when a woman meets a man who is truly free from the need to be liked, who is unbothered by emotional games. She feels something rare, a challenge, not one she can win by beauty alone, but one that requires her to rise to earn his presence. The man who can walk away doesn't do it as a strategy. He does it because he's already whole, and that is the most dangerous kind of man. The one who doesn't seek completion from anyone else. He understands that if a connection threatens his peace or self-respect, it's not worth having. That's stoic discipline in action. Not coldness, but clarity. When you embody this mindset, something shifts. You stop fearing rejection. You stop needing her to stay. And paradoxically, that's when she clings the most. Because now you are the prize. You're not performing. You're not persuading. You're living by your code. And that code makes you irresistibly rare. In the eyes of a woman, the man who walks away isn't cruel. He's confident. He's the embodiment of masculine grace. He doesn't dominate with loud words or flashy gestures, but with silent certainty. And when she realizes you're willing to leave rather than lose yourself, that's the moment she'll do anything to keep you. There's a kind of man who doesn't need to speak to make a woman's heart race. He doesn't brag, doesn't show off, doesn't throw out cheap compliments. Instead, he lets the silence do the talking. His presence says more than 1,000 words ever could. He knows the true language of attraction isn't spoken, it's felt. And this ability to create unspoken desire, it's not a trick. It's a form of emotional mastery, deeply rooted in stoic control. Most men think attraction is built on what they say. They overtalk, over-explain, try to be charming or funny, hoping she'll notice them. But the ideal man, the stoic man, understands that true attraction is never forced. It's created by energy, by pace, by presence. His silence is confident, not awkward. His gaze is steady, not needy. He owns the moment, not by dominating it, but by embodying it. When he looks at her, he doesn't blink nervously. He holds eye contact, just long enough to make her feel seen and slightly exposed. When he speaks, his voice is low, deliberate. There's no rush, no filler, just carefully chosen words, with the kind of control that makes her lean in, just to hear more. And that pause, that intentional silence before he says something like, "What am I going to do with you?" makes her body react before her brain can catch up. That's the power of the man who whispers desire without speaking. He doesn't chase physical intimacy. He creates tension. He lets it simmer. His touch, if it happens, is brief but electric. A brush of the hand, a soft guide through the doorway, a moment that lingers in her memory because it felt different. It felt real. It felt like he was in complete control of himself, of the moment, and of her reaction. This is stoicism in motion, true self-control. While most men are slaves to their urges, blurting out sexual comments or pushing too fast, the stoic man waits. Not because he's afraid, but because he knows the longer she wonders, the deeper she falls. Restraint is his weapon. He doesn't need to turn her on. He simply lets her desire build naturally until she's the one leaning closer, wanting more, craving what he's yet to give. And here lies the truth. Women don't want everything spelled out. They want to feel it before they hear it. They want that slow burn, that anticipation, that sense that they're on the edge of something powerful. But he's the one in control of when it happens. That kind of man becomes unforgettable, not because of what he does, but because of what he makes her feel. In a world full of men who try too hard, speak too fast, and push too soon, the man who knows how to pause, hold, and wait, the man who commands a woman's desire without saying a word, becomes the fantasy she never saw coming. That's the man she chases. That's the man she dreams about. There's a rare kind of man who doesn't just attract women, he awakens them. He doesn't try to impress with status, charm, or witty lines. He doesn't need to. His power lies in how he makes her feel. And what he makes her feel is like a woman. Deeply, unapologetically, vulnerably feminine. Not by saying the right words, but by embodying the right energy. The kind of grounded masculinity that only comes from stoic presence. In a world that constantly demands women to be in control, to lead, to compete, to plan. The moment she's in front of this kind of man, she softens. Not because she's weak, but because he gives her permission to let go. His stillness creates space for her chaos. His strength gives her permission to surrender. And in that surrender, she feels free. Most men don't understand this. They try to entertain, to persuade, to perform. But the ideal man doesn't perform. He simply is. He walks into a room and owns it quietly. He speaks slowly, listens intently, moves deliberately. There's no rush, no desperation, no scattered energy. He is anchored in himself, just like a stoic. And that inner calm, that's what pulls her in. When he looks at her, she feels like the only woman in the world. Not because he says so, but because his eyes don't wander. When he touches her, it's intentional. A soft hand on her back, a guiding gesture, a still moment that says, "You're safe here." And that safety, that unspoken assurance unlocks something in her that most men will never see. Her true feminine essence. Because here's the truth. The feminine doesn't want to lead. It wants to feel. And when a man can pull her out of her head and into her body, when he can silence the mental noise and replace it with raw emotion, he becomes unforgettable. She may not even understand why she craves his presence, but her body does. Her soul does. Her heart races, not because he tries, but because he allows her to melt. This man doesn't try to control her. He controls himself. That's stoic masculinity. He doesn't flinch when she tests him. He doesn't bend to please her. He holds steady, like a mountain in a storm. And in his steadiness, she finds excitement and safety, lust and peace, passion and protection, all at once. The man who makes her feel like a woman doesn't chase. He doesn't beg. He doesn't prove. He simply radiates a power so calm, so certain, that she finds herself drawn into his gravity. Not for what he offers, but for who he is. Because in a world full of boys trying to impress, a man who awakens the woman inside her, without saying much, becomes the one she wants to surrender to. That's not manipulation. That's mastery. That's stoicism in action. And that's what makes him the man she dreams about long after he's gone. The philosophy of the ideal man, according to Stoicism, isn't about conquering others. It's about mastering oneself. In relationships, this shows up through four core principles: no flash, no rush, and an unshakable sense of personal value. First, a grounded man doesn't overshare or rush into emotion. He creates attraction not through loud gestures, but through quiet confidence, through subtle teasing, mystery, and the ability to let silence speak louder than words. Second, he's not afraid to lose anyone, because a stoic man never sacrifices his self-respect to hold on to a relationship. He walks away when peace is threatened, because he knows that his inner calm is worth more than external approval. Third, he knows how to create deep emotional impact without needing to say much. A steady gaze, a purposeful pause, a well-timed touch. These speak volumes and leave lasting impressions, far more than overused compliments or forced charm. Finally, the stoic man makes a woman feel like a woman, not by flattery but by his presence. His calm, solid energy gives her space to soften, to feel safe, to be herself without needing to perform. And that, more than anything, makes her feel desired in the most authentic way. In a world full of noise and chaos, the man who remains calm, slow to react, and unattached to outcome becomes the one others admire and the one they never want to lose.